The U.S. now, where the government has been shut down for 39 days, and Democrats and Republicans are no closer to finding a compromise and reopening the government. As thousands of federal workers remain furloughed, many are worried about putting food on the table. For those Americans eligible for food benefits under the SNAP program, they are in limbo as the Trump administration makes its case for not paying to the courts. In the latest twist in the legal saga, the Supreme Court issued a pause following the ruling of a lower court that would have required the government to fund food stamps in full. Well, to help make sense of all of this, I'm joined now on set by Kethevane Gorjestani, our international affairs editor and former Washington correspondent. So could you tell us a bit more about what the Supreme Court ruling means?
Well, look, amid the shutdown, as you said, Donald Trump's administration initially moved to try to distribute partial SNAP benefit using whatever funds they had available, but refusing to pay it in full. And that's where a judge intervened and ordered the administration to distribute not partial, but full SNAP payments to all SNAP beneficiaries. The Trump administration then took it to the Supreme Court, turned to the Supreme Court to try to block that judge's order. And what the Supreme Court did was exactly that. They agreed to lift the deadline that had been imposed by the lower court judge, which was Friday, to give time to the Trump administration to figure things out, and most importantly, for the lower court procedure to go through. So the Supreme Court did not really rule on the merits, whether or not a judge had the authority to force the administration to pay those benefits in full, but simply giving more time. So it is a sort of partial victory for Donald Trump. But meanwhile, as you said, the word limbo for those beneficiaries is really the right one because millions of people have already started missing their benefits. Millions more likely will go on to miss them in the next days or weeks. And of course, for a lot of people, that means they need to find other solutions to be able to feed themselves and their families. Take a listen.
This is the first time I've actually ever been on public assistance in my adult life. And we held out pretty much as long as we possibly could. We used our savings, we used family, some credit cards. We basically were trying to get by.
Yeah, this isn't something I'm happy about doing, and I didn't really want to, but considering that the future is pretty unpredictable, and because I have gone without a couple of paychecks, I decided to come here and take advantage of this really generous opportunity.
The situation in the United States is that there are nearly 42 million Americans who depend on SNAP payments to feed themselves. 1 in 8 Americans is on SNAP, according to the latest data available from the spring. Primarily, these are households that include either a child, an elderly person, or someone who is disabled. And on average, households that are on SNAP benefits receive about $350 a month as part of the SNAP payments. In the last fiscal year, Texas, Louisiana, and the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., had more than 20% of their populations on those SNAP benefits. And there's always a debate as to who benefits more from SNAP. The Republicans saying it's more the minorities, it's foreigners. Really, when you look at the picture, it's pretty much everyone, every sort of demographic group represented in the United States has some sort of SNAP payment. So there's no real difference whether you're Republican, Democrat, white, or black. This is something that really impacts all Americans.
A very important program. Now, as you mentioned, this was a bit of a partial victory for Donald Trump and otherwise a pretty bleak week for the president.
Absolutely. And this all started, of course, on Tuesday with those elections in several states and cities across the United States. And across the board, the Democrats won, and they won big. Zoran Mamdani, of course, in New York City, the You see on the images there, Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill in Virginia and New Jersey, redistricting in California. Democrats didn't just win, they won in big numbers, and partly because of their messaging against Donald Trump. When you look at the exit polls, more than half of the voters who cast a ballot across the United States said that opposition to Donald Trump, reaction to Donald Trump was a big deciding factor in which vote they made. And the Democrats made huge gains in groups that Donald Trump had managed to flip just a year ago. Second sort of defeat was on Wednesday, the hearing at the Supreme Court over Donald Trump's big tariff use. And it seems, if you listen to that hearing, that most of the justices, including the extremely conservative Trump-nominated justices, expressed broad skepticism about Donald Trump's use of tariffs. We won't have the decision in the next weeks, probably more in the next couple of months, but it seems that they might be willing to hand down a huge defeat to Donald Trump when they make their ruling. And finally, we talked about the SNAP benefits and the government shutdown. The impact of the shutdown is continuing, missing SNAP payments for some people, federal workers going without a pay, air travel and chaos just a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving. All of that is weighing on the country, but it's also weighing heavily on Donald Trump, because the latest polls all show that while Americans blame both the Democrats and the Republicans and the president, they still, by a large chunk, blame more the Republicans and the U.S. president than they do the Democrats. And that has an impact on Donald Trump's personal approval rating that is continuing to lose ground, lose steam. So not a very good week for the U.S. president.
And this all could maybe play into upcoming midterms next year. Kethevane, thank you so much for joining us. That's our international affairs editor, Kethevane Gorjestani.